What's up, people? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. Today, we're going to be going over UFC 302, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier from a picks prediction standpoint and from a betting perspective as well. I want to quickly thank all the likes, the subs, the comments that you guys leave. And if you do enjoy this video and you got value from it, please leave me a like. Being next generous, leave me a comment. I also want to send a special shout out to everyone who's a part of the money team. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, before we get into the picks prediction standpoint, I'm just going to quickly go over bankroll, risk management. You can pause the video. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what a bankroll is. Recommend the staking strategy. Risk management's #1 priority to maximize our profits and keep our downside risk low. So bet between 0.25 and 1.25 units, depending on a 1 to 5% confidence level. And also keep in mind, guys, that we are day trading the UFC betting markets here. The goal is to gradually accumulate profits over time, which then compounds into larger amounts. Similarly, we approach the UFC betting markets as an investment opportunity. However, it's important to recognize that you won't see private jet or Bugatti money next week. Trying to grind and build up bankroll over time. So, first fight of the night, we have Lima versus, I don't even want to pronounce that name. I'm just going to call him Tum. So Tum, he's got a striking style, throws a wide range of attacks, attacks from wild angles. He has a lot of looping shots, a lot of looping hooks, and uses his head movements for defense. When it comes to the grappling, he will mix up, but I say he's an okay offensive grappler. He is quite effective at winning scrambles, and in his fight against Quiram, so I'm probably butchering that as well, he did visibly fatigue, and he would often go for subs off his back instead of trying to use them to get up. To me, still a bit of an unknown. I need more footage before I can have a super strong read on his style. And he's only been facing low-level competition, and there's only like 4 fights of film on him. Lima, he's a BJJ black belt against Severino, which was famously the bite fight. Severino was putting the pressure on. He was forced to fight on the back foot, and he did look a little bit uncomfortable in those positions. He did get taken down a couple of times by Severino, but he did a very good job of scrambling and working his way back up. His striking style is more loading up on big single shots instead of throwing volume and trying to outpoint people. He throws a lot of straight shots, low kicks, body kicks, high kicks. He throws a lot of the basics. Now, stylistically, how these two match up from a skill set perspective, in my opinion, guys, this is a pretty tricky fight to predict, in my opinion, because there's not enough footage on these guys, and we haven't seen them face the highest level of competition. I do think De Lima might struggle in round one with Tumen's pace, pressure, and volume, and his unorthodox style of attack. But that might benefit him as well, because that could leave openings for him to land his heavy shots. It's going to be the pace and pressure from Tumen, and I think it's going to be the power shots and technique from De Lima. And when it comes to the grappling, I think De Lima is the better grappler. He's a BJJ black belt, and I think you can win these grappling exchanges. Honestly, guys, I think this is a pretty tricky fight to predict. I don't have a lot of confidence on it, but I'm going to pick De Lima, low confidence. From a betting perspective, I personally would like to leave this one alone, because I don't have the strongest read in the world yet. And I wish there was a bit more footage on these guys. And the flyweight division is quite tricky to predict, because these guys are really skilled and fast. I'm not too sure about how much potential both of these fighters have in the UFC. So, next fight, we have Niko Price versus Alex Morono. Now, Niko Price, I definitely think this is a guy on a decline. He was never the most technically gifted fighter, and he was previously known for having the death touch. Of course, if he lands heavy on Morono, he could probably hurt him. But he's taken a lot of damage, the chin, the durability, and I think he is regressing. Price's striking style is he tries to land these bombs. He's not that technical and skilled, and he doesn't have the best striking defense. He doesn't really set anything up. He just kind of randomly button smashes these strikes. And he does visibly fatigue and get worse as the fight progresses. He has more of a blood and gut style of fighting compared to like a skilled technician. Price also has not the best ground game either. He's a bad defensive grappler and he can be controlled on that. Morono, he's a good fighter, but he can have some awful fight IQ. He can take some unnecessary risks. But he's got a boxing style of attack. He's pretty athletic. He's pretty fast. Has some nice right hands, which have a little bit of power behind him. Definitely pretty fast on the feet, but you can have periods of inactivity. He looks to dart in and out and land those shots. He has a strong guillotine and he's not afraid to flop to his back for it. Stylistically, how these two match up from a skill set perspective, I think Morono is a mid-level welterweight, while I think Price at this stage of his career I think he's on a decline. I think he's towards the bottom of the welterweight rankings, unfortunately, in the welterweight division in general. I think Morono is going to be much faster at this stage of career. I think he's more sharp. He's more skilled. I think he's going to be able to beat Niko Price to the punch. From a betting perspective, I think this is a little bit tricky because Morono is prone to making mistakes, making bad in-fight decisions. But I agree with Morono being a favourite. And I think the odds are accurate. So, next fight we have here, we got a great fight here. We got Kopylov versus Cesar Almeida. I'm really looking forward to this fight, actually. So, we're going to have a striking matchup. Now, Cesar Almeida, he's transitioning from kickboxing to MMA. He also, 8 years ago, beat Alex Pereira in the kickboxing fight. With the grappling, of course, that's a big talking point here. He definitely lacks the speed, the fluidity of someone who is lifelong trained. He knows the right things to do, but he has to think about it, and it lacks the fluidity because he's not lifelong trained in grappling. In his Dana White Contender Series fight, he got taken out a few times, but managed to work his way back up to the feet and even got a few reverses and had some top control. But on the feet, this is where he stands out. Very good kickboxer, very fluid, technical, very nice boxing, and he has a very nasty low kick. Roman Kopylov, on the other hand, he's definitely been a fighter who's been making improvements to his game. He looks much faster, much more technical, a lot sharper compared to a few fights ago or a couple of years ago. He's a southpaw striker, has a nasty, powerful body kick, good head kick as well, fast low kick, fast, sharp, powerful hands too. His defensive grappling in round one looked good against Fluffy, but Fluffy was able to eventually wear on him and take him down. And he's not the strongest defensive grappler. Stylistically, I think I think UFC are giving Almeida a good matchup here. They're giving him another striker who doesn't have the best offensive grappling. And I think it's a good matchup making from the UFC. It's going to be a low confidence pick on Cesar Almeida here because I'm going to trust his kickboxing prowess to get the job done here. And from a betting perspective, he's like around plus 110, plus 120. I think the fight's going to be a very competitive kickboxing fight. And I do have a little bit on Cesar Almeida at the moment. I've got around maybe like 0.3 units, plus 120, did a bit of steam chasing. I'm going to see how the line progresses, think about the fight more often. But yeah, I think Cesar Almeida's kickboxing prowess is going to get the job done. But I think it could be quite a competitive striking fight. So next fight we have here, we got Jake Matthews versus Phil Rowe. Now, Phil Rowe, I think is a fighter who's been making improvements. He's a fighter with a massive frame, full welterweight. He's 6'3" with an 18.5-inch reach. And he tries to fight to his strengths as well. He likes to fight long. When it comes to the striking, he's mainly got a boxing style of striking. He tries to fight long, utilize his reach, fight behind the jab, and he's got and his money shot is definitely the right hand, and he will throw some low kicks as well. He took a step up in competition against Neil Magny. I was quite perplexed by his game plan there, where he was trying to initiate the grappling on Neil Magny. He was able to take down Neil Magny briefly and take his back briefly, but ultimately lost a split decision. Now, he's not the strongest offensive grappler, and I think this is predominantly going to be a striking matchup between these two. And he's also got some nice knees in the clinch. I think if you are able to close the distance and really put it on Phil Rowe, he is there for the taking. In round 3, he got hurt against Niko Price, and his fight against Gabe Green was able to put the pressure on him, make it uncomfortable for a fight. I do think he's a little bit fragile there. You know, he got rocked by Price, got rocked by Green, and Osco, probably butchering that name, sorry guys, stunned and wobbled him as well. I think his potential is around the mid to just below the mid-tier rankings of the welterweight. Jake Matthews, he's a UFC veteran at this point. He's been in the UFC since he was 19 years old. He has a boxing style of attack, high guard, fast, sharp, and he's actually pretty skilled. Wall throw with heat, jabs, crosses, hooks, and I like how he goes to the body as well. It's pretty good striking defense. Against Morales, a lot of the shots were blocked, and Matthews does a good job of rolling with the shots. When it comes to the kicks, he'll occasionally throw a teep or a low kick, but mainly he's got a boxing style of attack. Now, he's going to want to use his feints to close the distance against Phil Rowe, because Phil Rowe has a big reach advantage here. And honestly, I think Matthews is starting to peak and look his career best at this stage of his career in the UFC. Now, stylistically, how these two match up, I think Phil Rowe is going to want to fight long. He's going to want to fight behind his jab. While it's Matthews' job to close the distance efficiently. If not, there's a good chance he's just going to get jabbed up. I think he's going to use his feints and try and set up his boxing attacks. If not, use a pressure-heavy game plan of stalking him down. I do think Matthews is the overall better striker. There's more variety to his combinations. He's faster. I believe he's got a better technique. And I also think Matthews has faced higher level guys and he's been in the UFC for longer. And I do think he's starting to peak at this stage of his career. It's going to be a low confidence pick here on Matthews because he got rocked multiple times against Semmelsberger. He got dropped. And Fiallo did drop in at the end of round one as well. Now, from a betting perspective, the odds are starting to prove on Matthews. I'm going to let my thoughts marinate before committing to a bet, but it's going to be a low confidence pick on Matthews here. So next fight we have here, we got Grant Dawson versus Joe Solecki. Now, my first instinct was that fight against Bobby Green. I don't know what that was about. That looked really sketchy. It's almost like James Krause was pulling strings in jail. But overall, I'm actually very high on Grant Dawson. His striking looks improved against Damir Ismagulov, but he mainly uses his grappling, and he's very slick grappling. He will shoot consistently, has a very slick back take, and if he takes your back, he can hold that body lock positions for large portions of the round. And yeah, like he's a guy who, if you are able to stuff his first couple takedowns, he won't quit on himself. He'll keep going. He won't get discouraged, which I really love. He's got really nice entries, really good transitions to get the fight down to the mat. He's very slick. That's the best way I can describe it. He'll keep attacking the grappling. If you take him down, if you are able to stuff him, he won't get discouraged. He's talking of a level of competition. He also grappled the likes of Madsen, who's an Olympian, Gordon, who's a BJJ black belt, and he also ragdolled Damir. When it comes to flaws, I do feel like Dawson's a little bit chinny. He can get dropped, and he did death gas badly against Ricky Glenn, which I never like to see. And he also did slow down towards the end of round 2 against Jared Gordon, but he fought through it well. His striking style is very unorthodox. He throws a lot of wild stuff, flying knees, overhands, comes in with different angles, but he mainly uses his striking to set up his grappling. Now, Solecki, he's a BJJ black belt. He got, in his previous fight, he got KO slammed by Drakkar Klose, which you never like to see. He's a good offensive grappler, but his defensive grappling is not the best. If you are able to put him on his back, he does kind of look like a fish off his back, which is kind of crazy to think about because he is actually quite decent offensive grappler and a BJJ black belt. He's got good fast entries, mainly goes for doubles and singles, and he also has a good body triangle as well. Striking wise, Solecki uses his striking to set up his grappling. He definitely doesn't feel comfortable on the feet, and he feels the most confident when he's taking these fights down to the mat. He's not a terrible boxer. He's pretty fast. He can pack a punch, but you can see he's visibly uncomfortable on the feet, and sometimes he's even willing to flop to his back to get the fight down to the mat. Stylistically, how these two match up, I think it's going to be predominantly a grappling fight. I think Dawson's the better grappler. I believe he can win these wrestling exchanges, battles, and transitions. And if Dawson's the one who gets on top, I think Solecki is going to really, really struggle. On the feet, it could be competitive, but I'm still going to favour Dawson. More variety, more angles on the feet. But I'll be shocked if it remains a striking fight. Betting wise, I'm pretty big on Dawson's style, and I'm actually kind of tempted to do something with him at average odds around 1.40. Now, next fight we have here, we got the return of Gall versus Bassil Hafez. Now, Bassil Hafez is famous for having that very, very competitive fight against JDM. He seems to be very, very physically strong. You know, he slammed JDM a few times. He's having a lot of success with controlling JDM, and he did take that fight on 2 days' notice. He also had some very, very nice entries and takedown entries against JDM. He looked uncomfortable on the feet against JDM, but he was still swinging heavy. Not the worst technique in the world, and he does throw these shots with a lot of power. So he did land some heavy shots on JDM. He's very, very tough. And that fight he took against JDM was on like 2 days' notice. He never quit in there, even when he got tired. Stylistically, on the feet, he throws power, loads up, tries to take people's heads off, compared to a striking style where you're trying to win a decision and kind of outpoint people. Now, how I feel about this one, I'll be getting some false gold with Hafez here. Like in his regional footage, he didn't look nowhere near as good as he did in the JDM fight, so maybe we're overrating him a lot from a loss. Now, from the Gall side, he last fought 2 years ago. He's not the most athletically gifted. He's very, very slow, bad striking defense, got a boxing style, not very clean, not very technical with it, and can just often wing hooks. He's meant to be a very, very strong grappler. That's his big selling point, but, you know, he got dominated by Diego Sanchez. Morono was having a lot of success on top control, and Randy Brown out-grappled him in the past too. I don't think he's the most stronger offensive grappler. Stylistically, how these two match up, I'm going to have to pick Hafez here. He's been more active, and I thought he looked really, really good against JDM. If that performance was an anomaly and we get a regional Hafez, I believe the fight could be quite competitive. So it's going to have to be a low confidence pick here. I think in the grappling exchanges, I think Hafez will get the better of them, and I favour him on the feet. From a betting perspective, I definitely feel there's some recency bias baked into the line because he had such a close competitive fight against JDM. And he's, for me, at this current moment, maybe my thoughts change. I'll speak to a few people, or let my thoughts marinate. He's not really a fighter that I'm looking to target from a betting perspective at average odds around 1.33, which I believe is around -300. I think if we get regional Hafez, the fight could play out quite competitive. Maybe Gall is been making improvements to his game as well after a 2-year layoff. So, next fight we have here, we got Joselyne Edwards versus Ailin Perez. Now, Ailin Perez, she's got good movement on her feet, using her kicking, using her to link to her boxing, but she uses her striking to set up her wrestling. Very, very nice entries. She can turn these kicks into takedowns. She can get takedowns from the clinch, and she looked very, very heavy on top against Pudilova, and very nice entries against Pudilova. She does an excellent, excellent job of driving through and finishing these takedowns. However, in round 3, she did visibly tire and kind of gassed out there, which I don't really love. Overall, I think she's quite a good offensive grappler here. Good body lock takedowns. She's very, very heavy on top, and she'll look to land ground and pound on the mat. And do think she's been making improvements to her game. She looks much, much better in recent performances. Now, Joselyne Edwards, on the other hand, not the best offensive grappler. I think her ceiling's towards the bottom of the division, unfortunately. She's predominantly a striker, likes her in boxing mainly, straight shots, jabs, hooks, low kicks occasionally. Honestly, she's pretty fast in round 1, but I'll say she's like an average striker at best. If you do get her worried about the grappling, she becomes much less confident in her striking, and she won't throw with as much power and speed, and becomes much more timid on the feet. She'll also get worse as the fight progresses, and she does kind of slow down. She has, unfortunately here, she has really, really bad takedowns, and she's really, really bad takedown defense, and she's really, really bad off her back. She got taken down by Pascal, Pudilova, dominated against Jessica Rose Clark, dominated by Carol Rose on the mat. Stylistically, how these two match up, the UFC here giving Ailin Perez a favourable matchup because I think they kind of want to give her a push. They're thinking Joselyne Edwards is not someone they can really promote well. And they're given a favourable matchup here because Joselyne Edwards, unfortunately, is a really, really bad defensive grappler. Awful takedown defense, and she's really, really weak off her back here. And I think Ailin Perez is going to be able to get her takedowns, out-grapple, out-control her, possibly get a finish. If not, get a dominant decision. Medium to high confidence here on Ailin Perez. From a betting perspective, I agree with Perez being a decent size favourite here at odds of 1.38 because I do think it's a good stylistic matchup for her. Now, next fight we have here, we got Kevin Holland versus Michal Oleksiejczuk or Lord Michael. Now, Lord Michael has a southpaw boxing style of striking. You know, he likes to move his head, bob and weave, really loves putting the pressure on people. Very nice boxing, fast, good technique, and he's got a nice sting to his punches. When it comes to his shot selections with his boxing, he mainly likes throwing these hooks instead of like the traditional jab crosses, then a hook. And he will also like the fact that he does go to the body. He does slow after round 1 because he puts such a heavy pace and pressure on people, and he does become much less effective as the fight progresses. When it comes to the ground game, he is improving his ground game overall and his takedown defense, but it's not bulletproof. And if you can get him down, you can have a lot of success on the mat. He looks really, really weak off his back. Kevin Holland here, he's moving back up to 185 here. Against MVP, really, really struggled against MVP's speed and the in and out style of attack and the timing of MVP. I don't really like Holland's mindset for the fight game. He's very, very unserious, and he can just often just take things as a joke. He's way too friendly with these guys in the cage. I definitely feel like he's a guy who's motivated strictly by money. Holland's a pretty athletic guy, and he has a huge, huge reach, 81.5-inch reaches, tries to fight long, jabs, crosses, side kicks, teeps, low kicks, and he likes using the shoulder roll as his form of defense. Holland has a few submissions on the ground, and he did take down MVP, who does have a weak ground game. But his defensive grappling has always been seen as a bit of a joke. If you are able to get him to his back, then he can have long periods of being controlled on the mat. But I don't think Michal's going to be taking down Holland at all in this fight. Now, stylistically, Holland, how these two match up, Holland's going to have a 7.5-inch reach advantage here. We know how Lord Michael is going to fight. He's going to want to pressure Holland, look to close the distance, land his boxing shots. Holland's most likely going to want to keep this fight long, utilize his reach advantage, maybe mix up his grappling, try to take this fight into round 2, round 3. I honestly think Michal is the better boxer, better technique, more power, more speed, more aggression, more will to win, and more serious about the fight game in general. So it's going to be a low confidence pick on Michal here. From a betting perspective, we don't have any lines yet. But Holland's a guy that I only really want to bet against when the UFC gives him favourable matchups against washed opponents. And even in those matchups against washed opponents, he can fight very, very competitive. And I do think he's pretty unserious about his fighting career and often makes really, really bad decisions in fights. And overall, I'm not too big on him. We've got no betting odds at the moment, but I imagine Holland's going to be maybe a slight favourite, or it's going to be a pick 'em line. So yeah, I'm going to pick Lord Michal there, low confidence. So next fight we have here, we got Randy Brown versus Zaleski dos Santos. Now Randy Brown is a long rangy striker, has a big reach, 78 inches, and he tries to fight long, likes utilising his jabs, crosses, teeps, oblique kicks. I think he has good overall technique, and I think he's a fighter who's been making improvements over the years. I say he's like a mid-level UFC welterweight. He can be quite vulnerable to low kick. When it comes to grappling, I think he's a mid-level grappler. Zaleski, on the other hand, comes from a capoeira background. He's decent boxing, but his kicks are definitely a strong suit. He likes using low kicks, body kicks, and he likes to throw a lot of power behind these strikes. He's still very, very good, but I do feel like he's on the decline. Stylistically, how these two match up, I think it's going to be a competitive striking fight. Randy Brown's going to want to fight long, keep his range, utilize his jab. And Zaleski's going to, want to land his power shots and power kicks. I'm going to lean towards Randy Brown in this matchup because I think he can get his game plan going and win a competitive striking decision. But it's definitely going to be a low confidence pick here. From a betting perspective, I agree with Randy Brown being a slight bet in favour. I think the odds are accurate. Maybe there's a little bit of value on him, but I need to think about it more. But I think this fight's going to be quite competitive. Now, next fight we have here, we got Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. Jailton Almeida, he's a monster, very strong offensive grappler, very good takedown entries, very physically imposing, very good ground control. He's very, very heavy on top, and he's very slick with his transitions on the mat. There's a submission threat as well, alongside with a ground and pound threat. Has very high level sweeps and has many ways to get the fight down to the mat. I honestly think his potential is probably like top 5 of the heavyweight rankings just because of his style. The striking, though, on the other hand, is a bit of an unknown. We haven't really seen his striking at all. He just shoots straight away. Alexander Romanov, on the other hand, on the feet, he likes to throw singular power shots, usually a powerful left hand to set up his grappling, occasionally throw a teep, occasionally throw a low kick, and definitely has some power behind the boxing, mainly because he throws everything into these shots. I think he has way too much body fat, and I definitely think he can slim down, and his cardio is 100% sketchy. Against Tybura, he had a 10-8 round in round 1. Well, actually, the judges scored a 10-9, but it could have been a 10-8 and lost because of his cardio. And against Juan Espino in round 3, he quit because he was starting to get tired, and the tide for that fight was turning. And against Volkov, he came in looking very, very overweight and fat, had one takedown entry which was stuffed, and then ended up gassing. And Volkov actually finished him by a ground and pound. If he is able to get you down, he's very, very heavy on top, powerful ground and pound, has some nice power entries and trips from the clinch positions and body lock positions. Very, very strong too. Picked up and slammed Tybura twice. Stylistically, how these two match up, I like Almeida here because I do think he's the better grappler. I think he can win the grappling exchanges, the scrambles, and get the best out of these grappling transitions. And I trust his cardio more. From a betting perspective, I think the odds are accurate with Almeida being a decent sized favourite, and I might do something with Almeida. Now, next fight we have here, we got Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. Now, Strickland, in my opinion, guys, is an elite level fighter. Beautiful jab. Mainly got a boxing style. He's got a Philly shell. He'll mix it up with a boxing guard too, okay? Times as well. Which is, the Philly shell is not really normally recommended at MMA, but if there's one guy who uses it very, very efficiently, it's Sean Strickland. His style is boxing. He has a very, very good defense as well, like underrated striking defense. When people throw to the head, it's very, very good head movement. There's a very, very good shot of evading the boxing shots and rolling with the punches. And he's also got underrated kicking defense as well. He's very, very good at checking and blocking kicks. He's got underrated power with the right hand, in my opinion. But he's not like a one-shot KO type of guy, but because the technique's so good and he does throw with venom. Has very, very good cardio and is very, very tough too. And he's got a willingness to put the pressure and pace when necessary. When he has that killer instinct where if he senses blood, he will go for the kill. Has a very, very good resume for very, very high level guys. A lot of experience, 25-6, split decision, controversial split decisions against the likes of Dricus du Plessis, Cannonier, got wins over the likes of Adesanya, Brendan Allen, and Marvov, and even fought Kamaru Usman back at 170. Has solid grappling too, good get-up game, and is hard to hold down on the mat. Now, Paulo Costa, on the other hand, he's changed up his style recently. Before, he was more of a bruising blitzer, put the pressure on, try and land these heavy hooks and bombs. But he's changed his style up to now where he tries to fight more technical, using jabs, using low kicks. He's pretty sharp, pretty fast, and he's very, very explosive. and he can be quite powerful. And overall, he's a very good athlete. You know, he likes his jabs, he likes his crosses, he likes his hooks, he likes to go to the body if the opportunity presents itself. And he's got a very, very fast, powerful, twitchy high kick. But as the fight progresses, he does seem to fade. You can't write him off because he's still very, very explosive and dangerous, but you can see visibly that he starts to fatigue. You know, he starts breathing from his mouth. I think his defensive striking and his defensive side of the striking game is not the best. You know, you can be hit. I'll say Costa's a mid-level grappler. He's very, very strong and he's hard to hold down. And he has mixed up his grappling chances, but I don't think the grappling is going to be very, very effective against Sean Strickland. And if he does go to the grappling against Sean Strickland, I think that's just going to tire him out. Stylistically, how these two match up, I like Strickland here because I think Strickland's an elite level UFC fighter, while I think Costa is a good fighter. Strickland has elite defense, so I don't think Costa will be able to land a lot of his strikes to get a knockout or even win a decision. I trust Strickland's cardio more. I think his style of striking is much, much more effective. I think he's technically superior on the feet. I trust his cardio more. Plus, he's the former champ. He's been more active. He's faced a high level. Guys, give me medium confidence here on Sean Strickland. And plus, this fight is 5 rounds, which I think favors him compared to a 3-round fight. From a betting perspective, Strickland is someone that I'm looking to bet on, and target because I do think he's going to get the win in this position. Now, we go to the main event of the evening. We got Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. Now, Islam Makachev, in my opinion, guys, is a world-class fighter. One of the best fighters in the game. World-class grappling. Excellent wrestling entries. Very, very good ground control. Very heavy on top. Has submissions. Has a nasty submission game. And overall, and he can also mix up with the ground and pound. And overall, I just think his grappling and wrestling game is world-class. He's also underrated in a clinch. Very, very strong Muay Thai clinch. And he also has underrated striking as well. He's definitely been improving the striking aspect of his game. Good kicks, good boxing, extremely tough, great cardio. Dustin, on the other hand, Dustin's an elite level fighter. I do think he's a bit on the decline. He's got a southpaw boxing style of striking, very good boxer, good defense, good job of blocking punches with his elbows, good head movement too. However, when it comes to the ground game here, in my opinion, Dustin's ground game is a bit of a joke. He loves to flop to his back with low-risk guillotines, which is bizarre, considering the fact that he's a very, very weak defensive grappler. He can get taken down. He can get control on the mat. Chandler had a lot of success controlling Dustin, and so did Benoit Saint-Denis. How these two match up, I think if there's a striking fight, you know, it could be quite a competitive fight. But the big issue here for me is Dustin's grappling. I think Islam could go to his grappling and get easy takedowns and have a lot of success controlling Dustin on the mat and grind out rounds, if not look for the finish here on the mat. High confidence and on Islam Makhachev here. From a betting perspective, I think the line is accurate. I think maybe there's a little bit of value on Islam Makhachev, but you are having to pay up a big chalk price. So it's one I'm considering using as a possible parlay piece. And you know, at the end of the day, Dustin's a very, very high level, elite level fighter. So I think the odds are fairly accurate. Because it's such a high profile fight with a lot of footage on both guys, the bookmakers and the betting public tend to be able to cap these fights very, very correctly. So that's the end of a breakdown. Thank you so much for tuning in to the end. If you did enjoy it and did get value from it, please leave me a like. Feeling extra generous, leave me a comment. And yeah, thank you once again, guys. Good luck with your bets and predictions.